Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This is my comic book thoughts video done in a super subjective countdown, very much based on my mood when I read the comics, which ones I had the most fun with and the least fun. I had just 5 comics this week, which is extremely low for me. 5 new comics that I bought this past Wednesday. And I may go to some of my backup shops and look for some other comics in a bit. We'll see. I seem to have less time to do that right now. But anyway, I had a pretty good time reading all of these comics. I would put in at number 5 the one that I actually kind of dreaded reading even before I started, because reading the last issue, I was kind of confused about what was going on. And just felt like, my God, I really should have just waited for trade on this. But I'm so far in, it's issue 9 of 12, I decided to keep going. It's certainly a nice, one of the nicest packaged comics from DC. But of course, they are charging $5 for it. In fact, it's amazing how many of my comics this week were the higher priced comics, even though I think I'm trying to avoid them. But anyway, this issue of Strange Tales was a little less confusing to me than the last issue, but it still was skipping around in time a lot and not always telling me, assuming I was smart enough to figure out what all these time skips were, and I wasn't. And maybe part of them is signified by the different artists working on it, but I actually find that these great artists, Mitch Gerards and Evan Shaner, their art is starting to look more and more alike as the comic book continues, to me. It's not an easy, obvious, okay, we're in the past on Ran, now we're in the present on Earth, or now we're in some other time on Earth. Because I think there were 3 different times that were cycling through this story. So it wasn't terrible, but I sort of just came into it with a negative attitude and didn't have that totally cleared up. Beautiful art, as always. So that was number 5. In at number 4 I had 2 DC comics this week. That's a lot, actually, because I'm pretty much cutting DC out of my pull list that I can think of, other than Strange Adventures. Oh, and another Black Label book, the Dreaming book. But this was there was an extra issue of Imperious Lex, unlike all the other 2-issue Future State ones. This one came out this week, so I guess that's the end of Future State. And this doesn't really have anything to do with any concept that is Future State, whatever that might be, which I never figured out. I actually kind of love this cover. Is it by Steve Pugh? No, it's by Yannick Paquette. Inside art by Steve Pugh is pretty good, but as I've said before with the other 2 issues, I'm not a super fan of the way it was colored. This was very enjoyable, kind of, the writer, Mark Russell, who now we're very used to the way he will do political commentary and black humor in his comics. And this was along those lines, but in kind of a lighter vein, because it kind of incorporated some of that feel of a Silver Age Lex Luthor and Superman kind of conflict. Which is ironic, because it's an elderly Superman and Lois Lane, who were interesting, but I kind of thought, couldn't Lois Lane be even more interesting, this future version of her? It was a bit toned down. Some of the rougher edges you might expect from Mark Russell weren't there. Although there was kind of a classic Mark Russell robot with a conscience kind of thing that kind of reminded me of the utility animal tools that Mark Russell did in his Flintstones series. Okay, in at rank number 3 was Beta Ray Bill. Number 1 from Marvel, one of the few Marvel books I'm getting, and it was $5.99, and I think there was extra pages. It didn't feel like a super long story. I loved the art. It was a good enough narrative that was really a prologue to whatever Daniel Warren Johnson, who's doing everything here but the colors, whatever Daniel Warren Johnson has coming up for the rest of the story. And I'm not sure how many issues this is. I thought it was just going to be 4 issues, but maybe it's going to be 6, I hope, given the first issue was such a prologue. Kind of, as far as I can tell, an attempt to tie into current Thor narratives with what's going on with Asgard and Sif and such, and tie into the King in Black series that is, I think, just winding up. I'm not sure. So we get Fing Fang Foom, who is controlled by the King in Black, or Canal, or Venom, or whoever it is. Incredibly awesome art. If only every Marvel comic could be of this caliber, I would be buying Marvel day and night. I hope it sells really well, and that sends a message to the powers that be that let's get these really good artists and pay them a good amount of money, and then we'll get more readers. I don't know if it works that way, but that's how I would hope. In at number 2, Usagi Yojimbo, Wanderer's Road, which is the recolorings of early Stan Sakai, Usagi Yojimbo, all of which originally came out in black and white. And I'm reading it for the first time because I was stupid and didn't read Usagi in black and white. I'm loving him in color. And so this series, this Wanderer's Road, has every cover by Peach Momoko. And for whatever reason, she chose to do this sideways cover, and it is beautiful. I'm starting to see why people are entranced by Peach Momoko's work. And I know she's doing something at Marvel, so I may take a look at that after it's all published, either digitally or in a trade or something, or cheap back issues. But this was another excellent reprint, and what made it stand out is it's a nod of the hat, a tribute to... I'm being distracted by a dog barking outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. So that made me lose my train of thought for a second. A tribute to Gru by Sergio Aragonés. And Stan Sakai has been part of the team on Gru, I think, for its entire history. And there is supposedly some more Gru coming out soon. He's been the letterer, and he's a hand letterer, and his lettering makes a lot of difference. So there are a number of clues that it was dedicated to Sergio Aragonés, but including, with apologies to Sergio Aragonés' Gru the Wanderer, signed Stan Sakai the Mendicant, after this kind of poem-like thing. Most issues of Gru start with some kind of saga poem, as if it were being told by some traveling minstrel. And even these little figures here, he doesn't try to, and just the way this brawl looks, and that there's a double-page spread on the second and third page, which always happens in Gru. And there is a brief appearance by Gru just in silhouette, and the general tone of the story is more Usagi than Gru, but there is a sense of the idea of rogues on the road wandering around, where Usagi and Gru kind of intersect at times anyway. So I got a big kick out of it. I would say, if I had to rank it with the other ones in Wanderer's Road, this is... it's still an A comic in my book, but some of those others might have been A pluses, and this is just an A comic. And there's the final page has a moral on it, which is often how the Gru comics end, with a joke moral to the whole session. Moral: when you cheat someone, you wind up paying with interest. I do wish there was like some back matter, maybe, where Stan talks about these old issues and gives us a little more background. That would be fun, but they don't do that. Maybe that's coming in the trade. I know there's a paperback trade about to be published. I really hope there's going to be some hardbacks, because that's where I really want this stuff ultimately. And this probably, in a sense, was the best comic I read this week. And, they were all really good. But the one that gave me the biggest thrill was Two Moons by John Arcudi. I don't know the first name of the writer. The artist is Valerio Giangordano, And colors by Bill Crabtree. So we're seeing a lot of Bill Crabtree lately, which is a good thing. He's a great colorist. Letters by Michael Hassler. It actually is a well-lettered comic, by the way. I don't normally think too much about letterers, but right after I said who the letterer is. So I read both issues, issue 1 and issue 2 of Two Moons together. I'd heard other people talking about it and got really interested. I didn't realize there was a new book by Arcudi. I was not familiar with his artist, but he is an amazing artist. And Bill Crabtree's colors match and work well with him. The first issue was actually colored by Dave Stewart. And Bill Crabtree's colors are, on a par with Dave Stewart's. So there's no sense of being, distracted or anything by the change in colorist. So in Two Moons is a gritty horror, mystical fantasy taking place during the Civil War. And it really kind of brings alive some of the brutal aspects of the Civil War. And the war is hell, and in the midst of a war, there's the sense of morality going away. And on top of that, a lot of issues about being a Native American, a survivor of the smallpox or whatever other disease had wiped out his tribe, who was raised by white people, and all of the identity issues there. So it's a pretty incredible package. Now, each issue is kind of just gives you a little bit of the story, and then it moves on. And we still don't fully know where this story is going. I have a feeling it's kind of the character being led through the kind of Civil War landscape a bit, I'm guessing, led by some spiritual call from the mystical or, fantastical side of his Indian culture. So, but I can't tell for sure where that's going yet. And so I just really enjoyed the heck out of it. But what I was going to say is it helped that I read 2 issues together, because the story is kind of decompressed. It moves. It's not like there's no dialogue or anything like that. There's probably quite a bit, in terms of a modern comic, of plenty of writing here and there. Not a lot of silent pages or something, enough dialogue to keep it going. But still, it just moves a little bit each issue. Although each issue has felt like a chapter too. So anyway, very cool comic. I don't know how much attention it's getting, but if it keeps up this way, I think it should get a lot of positive attention. So, and I hope it's successful and can fulfill the full story, because that's often the danger with the indie comics. Some of them, the rug gets pulled out too soon. Although that can happen at Marvel Comics too. Okay, so let me show you, since this is probably a shorter video, I went to one of my backup stores today, and they only had one comic I was looking for that I heard about from Chaos and Comics called Destiny New York. I haven't read it yet. And then while I was there, I picked up some back issues of The Goon from The Goon's Dark Horse series. You may remember, 4 weeks ago, I read my first issue of The Goon, the latest issue, and I absolutely loved it. And so I decided, rather than going out and grabbing Goon trades, I'd rather read them in individual issues and probably read them a little bit here, a little bit there, rather than shotgunning them. So I just got The Goon number 6, which the first 2 issues I got, they have a kind of newsprinty kind of paper. So I got 5 and 6. Love the cover there on 6. And then I skipped ahead to 28. And by 28, he's on this very thick, slick paper. And I'm going to have to, as I read them, I'm not sure which I like the colors on, which makes this art style pop more. There's something a bit unusual about the colors. I guess the colors here are done by Dave Stewart. But the colors in the earlier books are done by other people, so it may be harder to compare. I got 28, 29, 30, and 31. I picked these up for about $3 a piece. Maybe if I find time to search, I can find more in 50-cent bins or the like. I guess the downside of not buying the current trades of it is I'm not putting more money in Eric Powell's pocket, but I do plan to put the Goon on my pull list. And who knows, maybe I will be buying some trades from him in the long run. Because he used to be with Dark Horse and perhaps some other publishers, but now he has his own publishing company called Albatross. So if you buy the comics or buy the trades, the money should be going directly to him. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again soon.